folks, what's going on? It's me, Andrew Westmoreland, back again with yet another video. And I'm not done talking about Patreon today. I am not. Man, you know, part of what I do is not just talking about things. I'm supposed to investigate. I'm supposed to look things up. I'm supposed to do journalism. So I did a little bit of that. Did a little bit digging on Patreon. Apparently Patreon has a strong stance on hate speech. Let's look at this real quick. We take a strong stance against hate speech and want to make sure you have the full context around this policy. So that would mean there's no hate speech on their platform, right? Well, if you're looking at the top of my screen, you know that I have found some examples of them being liars. But before we get started, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Virtual Shield. Today's video is brought to you by Virtual Shield. They are a VPN service that helps allow you to browse anonymously. Fantastic service, highly recommend it. It helps keep your identity safe, keeps your data private, and helps unblock censorship. Now, no VPN service is perfect, but having a service does help give you an added line of defense. If you want to sign up today, go check that link out down in the description down below. Let's get back to the show. Alright. So, yeah, Patreon is against hate speech. Well, first of all, I need to know what their definition of hate speech is. I need to know what they're talking about, because hate speech is very general. And then, you know, depending on who you talk to, it's always a different definition. So let's look at this. PatreonHQ.com. Alright. This is from Jacqueline Hart. I'm assuming she is a spokesperson at Patreon. Alright. Some creators and patrons have questions regarding our removal of Sargon of Akkad for hate speech. We take a strong stance against hate speech and want to make sure everyone has the full context regarding this removal. Before we get into specifics, we'd like to warn you that there's some inflammatory language. Yeah, okay. In an interview on another creator's YouTube channel, not on his own channel, not on Patreon, on another creator's YouTube channel, Sargon said, oh, do I really need to read this? Okay, so obviously I'm going to have to self-censor myself because YouTube and multiple other platforms can and will use this as an excuse to ban me if they don't like what I'm saying. Context doesn't matter anymore. Even if I'm quoting somebody, they can consider that hate speech and ban me. So I'm going to censor myself on these particular words. This is Sargon saying this. I just can't be bothered with people who choose to treat me like this. It's really annoying. Like you're acting like a bunch of N-words. Just so you know, you act like white N-words. Exactly how you describe black people acting is the impression I get dealing with the alt-right. I'm just not in the mood to deal with this kind of disrespect. And then a following quote for, I'm assuming later on in this podcast or YouTube video. Look, you carry on, but don't expect me to then have a debate with one of your F-word, like against gay people. Like, why would I bother? Maybe you're just acting like a N-word, mate. Have you considered that? Blah, 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 blah. Do you think white people act like this? White people are meant to be polite and respectful to one another, and you guys can't even act like white people. It's really amazing to me. Okay. So, context matters, and even in this, I'm already have questions. I have huge red flags and questions, and we know immediately that Patreon is full of shit. Okay? First of all, why is Patreon caring about what somebody said on another creator's content, not on Patreon, outside of their platform? So, again, this wasn't a post by Sargon on Patreon. It wasn't a post by Sargon on YouTube. It was a Sargon appeared on somebody else's YouTube channel, which is obviously not Patreon. Why does Patreon care? Why do they care what somebody said that is not connected to their platform like that? Like, it's okay. Like, come on now. Let's see. So, okay, he said the N-word. He called the neo-Nazi, racist, white supremacist, alt-right people white N-words. Is that offensive? Yeah, obviously. People shouldn't be using that kind of speech. And yes, even in this context, he is trying to be highly disrespectful to these white supremacist types. He's calling them what they hate the most. So I see what he's doing here. It's just obviously, it's not a good, don't do that. Also, another thing to understand is people talk like this a lot online. If you're in a certain generation older than, let's say, 35, this may be really shocking to you, or you know that people who you hear words like this and you immediately think of racists or people who are bigots and whatnot. But if you are my age or younger, you know that people talk like this all the time, especially online, and they aren't necessarily racist. Now, again, if you're reading the context of this, you see this for yourself. The context is he's talking crap back to these neo-Nazi, white supremacist, alt-right type of people. Isn't that supposed to be a good thing? Like, aren't these the extremists? Aren't these the people that the left are trying to combat? The far left? So what's the problem here? Well, it's because context doesn't matter to these people, and they don't like Sargon of Akkad in general because, yes, he does espouse conservative views, though he is economically left. He does espouse some conservative views, and he is very anti-establishment. Now, more from this, from Patreon. Some people worry that we are reviewing content not posted on Patreon. As a funding platform, we don't host much content, but we help fund creations across the internet. Another thing, that is incorrect. That is a false statement. Patreon's entire purpose is to that creators can post exclusive content on their platform, and people buy it as a service to them, as a way for them to make money. Okay, it is an alternative, a bonus. It is a subscription platform. Okay, YouTube has this functionality. Other platforms also have premium content ability, but Patreon literally is for that. Okay, people can go to your page, they can give you $5 a month, whatever, and have access to private content that only people who pay can see. That is posting content on Patreon for Patreon. So they're full of shit there as well. Okay, that is a lie. As a result, we review creations posted on other platforms that are funded through Patreon. Sargon is well known for his collaborations with other creators, and so we apply our community guidelines to those collaborations, including this interview. In our community guidelines, we state that we don't allow hate speech. Part of how we define hate speech in those policies is hate speech includes serious attacks or even negative generalizations of people based on their race and sexual orientation. Okay, that's interesting, so let's pause here again. So what they're saying is he was promoting or using hate speech against white people, against the neo-Nazi KKK types. Is that what they're saying? They're protecting neo-Nazi KKK type of people, is what they're saying here. Because he wasn't talking about black people in a negative light. He was saying that these neo-Nazi racist KKK people were acting like white N-words, how they perceive black people. So he was basically, again, it's clear as day. He's clearly using their own language, their own hate speech against them to degrade them, not to degrade black people. In fact, he's defending them in a way. Like, I disagree with his use of the word, obviously, but he is not doing this in a way, in the context, in a way of him being on their side. He's against them. So what Patreon is saying is basically that he's using hate speech against the people that hate speech is supposed to be going against anyway, if that makes any sense. It's ridiculous. When reviewing an account for a potential hate speech violation, we consider some of the following questions. Is a creator using racial slurs or negative depictions of a protected class? White people are a protected class? I didn't know that. I know in some instances they are, but that's interesting. Hate speech laws, and generally speaking, are supposed to protect LGBTQ people, minorities, like racial minorities, women, people of color, that sort of thing. So he was talking negatively towards racist, white supremacist, KKK, neo-Nazi type, alt-right, white people. So they are a protected class now, according to Patreon? That's interesting. In this case, Sargon used racial slurs to insult others and specifically linked those slurs with negative generalizations of behavior, in contrast to how people of other races act. No, he was talking to white people, racist, white supremacist, white people, and used their own language against them and said that they are acting like how they perceive black people. So he did use the slur against gay folks, LGBTQ people, which is, they should have just sticked with that. That would have held more ground. In fact, me personally, I don't necessarily find it offensive, but I can see why people would. And yeah, they should warn him on that. They should be like, hey, listen, this is unacceptable behavior. This is a violation of our terms of service. You get a warning. Don't do it again or we'll ban you. They don't do that. Patreon has no warning system. Well, they choose to, on occasion, they have no rules of enforcement set in stone, a policy where people know and trust, okay, if I accidentally do something, or if I do it purposely even, I'll get a warning, I'll get a strike. Like YouTube will give you strikes, okay, and that's their warning system. After a certain amount of time, like 6 months, those strikes go away, your channel's in full good standing. Patreon doesn't do that. They just decide one day, you violated their terms of service, whether true or not, and they decide, hey, we're getting rid of you today. That's a problem. So, since they take hate speech so seriously on Patreon, yeah, let's take a look. But of course, I have to give you this graphic warning. Content is graphic. It does contain hate speech. It does contain offensive content, and this is on Patreon. So let's just dive right into it. I searched for this word on Patreon. Oh, look at this. What's up, my... like people are trolling. This is from a year ago. Hashtag N-word girls 3 years ago. I mean, and you can just go through this, and if you just go on Patreon and start looking for these words, we can find a lot of it. Now, a lot of the stuff is talking about racism. They are trying to expose, it's anti-racist content, sure, but a lot of it is not. Some of it is trolling, some of it is just legit hate speech, and you can scan through that. So that's the N-word. It's all over the place on Patreon. Let's look at a different word. Oh, look at this word. The F word against LGBTQ people. Big boy F word. And some of this is, again, people using it, talking about themselves. Some of it is in reference to the community as a term of self-identification. And again, some of it is hate speech. Like, it's rife on this website. And like, here's another one. This is just hate speech. Like, you can call it shit posting or whatever, and you know, people may not mean it, but look, it's right there. Wanted to find this F word and rip out his heart. Like, it's just all over the place. Does anyone think I'm an F word? Like, it's just all over the place. Like, yeah, they do not. And this is self-harm. And this is self-harm buddies. And, you know, again, not all, context matters. Some of this is people using it to be edgy. They're not necessarily, like, this is self-harm for I can't even speak it. I mean, it's just here. You just go through this stuff and just look for bad words, you know, hate speech, and you will find pretty much whatever you want. I don't even know what else to look for. Is that even the right way to say this? Like, the most offensive things you can think of, most offensive words, and it's just all in here. So again, Patreon is full of crap. They do not police hate speech on their platform. They have no team. Their safety, what do they call it? I can't even find it. Their something safety team is just bullshit. It's bogus. And they're just arbitrarily banning people because of their political beliefs. Let's just be 100% honest about it. That's what's happening. That's why there's a mass exodus from Patreon right now, and it is a major escalation in the cultural civil war. Huge escalation. As somebody who is fairly neutral, a libertarian centrist, a left-leaning centrist, I do not personally, I don't care if somebody is a leftist or a right-winger. Like, I don't care if you're conservative or a liberal, Democrat, or Republican. That shit, I don't give a crap, okay? That's not my issue. My issue is bad policies or bad ideas that harm other people or that try to dominate and control other people. I hate authoritarianism, and very rarely will I support an idea that has to use force against another person. I just don't like it. It doesn't make sense. I feel like people have to decide to do something freely of their own volition, and then I would be okay with it. That's not what we're seeing in a lot of cases. So my issue here is, it's clear that Patreon is hypocritical. They're lying. It is clear as day. The evidence is right in front of you. They are lying to the public. They're trying to save face. They got caught, and obviously everyone is digging through their platform. And this is days after this. Okay. So just imagine what was on their platform before they started panicking and trying to remove content, because you know they've been trying to purge some of this stuff. You just know it. And again, if I just found some of the stuff from years ago, you know that there was this culture on Patreon. They don't care. They don't search their own platform to weed out hate speech. This is a targeted attack against somebody that they didn't like, somebody who they didn't like their political ideology or their opinions. That's it. That's absolutely it. And it's caused a chain reaction. Okay. They are trying to set off nukes, okay, and it misfired. Yeah, it hit a couple people, and a lot of people are losing a crap ton of money, but they basically just bombed a civilian city. That's basically what they did. And now everyone is scattering, just wondering why the hell did they just commit a war crime? Because that's essentially, I mean, again, this is a little hyperbolic, this is a little exaggerated, but this is a cultural civil war that we're in. This is, at first I was like, I hear people talking about it, and I'm like, okay, maybe. But now I see it for what it is. People's livelihoods are being destroyed over nonsense, stuff that isn't even being taken into context. Now, if we had somebody like Richard Spencer, who is a known white supremacist, alt-right person who is a nasty human being, if they went after someone like him, which they did, obviously everyone did, he's still out there. He's still doing just fine. And it's interesting that they're going for everyone who is not like him, okay? So anyone who isn't of the identical political ideology is basically being targeted, and it's scary. These companies don't care about free speech. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about principles of equality and justice, any of that. They're not even there to make money. If they were there to make money, they would have just left it alone. They would have given, you know, Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, a strike or a warning and been like, hey, you know, and said plain as day, hey, you know, we look at other outside platform content, which I personally view as ridiculous for the most part. 9 times out of 10, that is not acceptable to me. But they should have just given him a warning and said, listen, do it again, then we will ban you. But they're clearly not there for money, because they're banning people for their political ideology and not necessarily for their content. You know, if you're against hate speech, some people don't even consider hate speech a thing. Some people consider that a political ideology. Now, personally, I do believe hate speech is a thing. You know, if you are hateful, okay, if you are trying to use slurs, racial or ethnic or gender slurs, whatever, that is hate speech. That is a real phenomenon. Now, the question is, should that be banned on the internet or from social media platforms? To a degree, I say no. To a degree, I say yes. I think it depends, okay? When we start when you start saying that people can't say certain words, it causes a chain reaction, and it gets worse. It escalates, as we're seeing. I think it's a problem. We have a severe problem. And instead of pretending like these words are killing people and we have to have these extreme reactions to it, how about we just shame them and be like, you're a disgusting human being for calling somebody that or believing that. I think that's more effective. But instead, they're taking people's statements out of context and making them out to be something they're not, for whatever reason, outrage and to rile people up and to gain political points and power. It's weird, it's creepy, it's gross, it's disgusting, and I want no part of it. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Again, I had to do a second video on Patreon today because this stuff is just out of control. It is really creepy, really scary to see companies like this trying to literally change the dynamic of how people are thinking and reacting and how people are. Like, they're trying to force bottleneck the country into a certain way of thinking, and that you cannot say certain words. You can't be a certain political ideology because that means you're bad. No. What they are doing, companies like Patreon are doing, is just evil. They are trying to destroy people by any means but necessary. They're trying to take away their income, which means they can't survive, which means people will be destitute and homeless and all that other crap. And it's evil. I'm sorry. And I do not think that I would not have the same visceral reaction if this was a conservative movement against liberals. I absolutely would. It's disgusting to me to see that free speech is being attacked like this. I can go on for hours, but I'm not. I'm not going to subjugate you on to that. I might have more videos coming today. It depends on how I'm feeling and what topics are out there. But I'll keep an eye out. I'll probably do another video, most likely. We'll see what happens. So if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please comment down below and let me know what I missed. Let me know what you think. and I don't know, maybe some predictions of what you see happening in the future. A lot of insanity, a lot of madness happening recently. So thank you so much for watching, and remember that I'm your centrist voice of reason in a time of hyper-partisan lunacy. See you next time, folks.